Hi, so my name is Madison Gregory, and today we're going to be talking about the Mukden Incident. So the first thing I'm going to be looking at is what it is. So it was known as this because the Japanese bombed an area in Manchuria which was known as Mukden. Now, when I first saw the word Mukden, I kind of split the word in half, which has no significance, but I thought it was kind of funny to start out. So when I thought of muck, I thought of dirt because that's just the first word that came to mind. And then when I thought of den, I thought of, something outside. So when I combined the words together, I thought of an outside battle. Now, like I said, that has nothing to do with this, and that was obviously not right at all because it was part of Manchuria, but that's where my brain went when I first thought of the word. So it was an area of Manchuria, and also this battle was on September 18th, 1931. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is background information. So the Mukden incident kind of seems strange because everybody thought that it was a little unnecessary. So what it was is the Japanese blew up a portion of their own railroad and staged it to look like the Chinese. So they blamed the Chinese, and this led to a series of battles, and eventually led to the Battle of Manchuria, which I will talk about in a few minutes. But they had staged this, and everyone kind of thought it was a little weird that they would go to so many extremities over 31 inches of steel railing, because that in and of itself is not a huge deal. Well, they said that they had a list of reasons, even though this was something that they had staged themselves. So when looking at it in retrospect, they didn't have a whole lot of reasons, especially this wasn't a good reason, but they really just wanted to control Manchuria. So next we're going to be talking about the why, and I know I went into that a little bit in the last one. They basically wanted Manchuria because it was full of natural resources. So when you're looking at this time and you're looking at natural resources, a lot of stuff was up to trade. Trade kind of controlled everything. Well, China had a lot of the big trade routes. So what this did was kind of ensure that the Japanese had a piece of that where they could trade their own natural resources, and they also didn't have that need for them anymore. They had the demand, and how much they supplied to everyone else was up to them. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is what is it and what did it lead to. And I know I talked about this a little bit, but this kind of gives you more of an in-depth as to what it was. So it was staged, and they made it look as if it were the Chinese, as I had already said. So when thinking of this, when I first read this, it seemed really ridiculous to me. Like, why would you hurt yourself to make it look like it was somebody else? Well, it made sense when I started reading into it and, realized that they wanted to control Manchuria, and it's almost kind of like a tactic. Like, they wanted everyone else to feel sorry for them, and they wanted to make it seem like they were getting the short end of the stick. But in all honesty, it was kind of brilliant because the Chinese knew they didn't do it, but nobody else knew that they didn't do it. And then they had accused the Chinese, which I'd already talked about, and this was all, as I'd already said, a conquest to control Manchuria. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the significance. So this was a tiny battle when you look at the whole thing, but what it led to was much bigger. So it led to the Battle of Manchuria eventually, but there were many other things in between there, little other battles and stuff like that. And it's kind of cool when you look into history, because history is one of those things where everything happens for a reason. Every one thing leads to something else. And when they had set this up to make it look like this, they knew eventually what it would lead to. And they knew that they had a chance to control Manchuria. So it's really kind of cool to see how this battle shaped history and what it led to, because everything, like I said, happens for a reason. So it was really cool to see how one little bitty incident that the Japanese staged themselves created something much bigger. And I think that's all I have, and that is the Mukden incident.